Okay. Eat every drop of that.
Good morning. The time is 8:32, and I'd like to call this meeting of the NOACA Finance and Audit Committee to order. Let's take a moment to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted and major public media has been notified. NOACA conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. If any member feels the need to abstain from any vote due to a conflict of interest, he or she should state their intention to abstain when the matter is introduced by the chair for presentation. For the record, subsequently, that member shall not participate in any discussion of the matter for which a conflict exists. According to Robert's rules, absence from a meeting does not require a member to abstain from voting on the minutes. If the member still wishes to abstain, he or she should state their intention for the record. For the benefit of our guests from the public and for the recording of this meeting, Please be sure to speak into the microphone. The microphones can be turned on and off using the button on top of them. We turn now to the minutes of May 9, 2025. Are there any corrections or additions? Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Conrad, second by Mr. Dever. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved. Has anyone signed in to speak today at public comment? Okay, there being none, we will move on to the next agenda item. Is there an executive director's report?
Good morning. Just a few minor things. First of all, we have the annual meeting coming up, and don't forget to register for it. It will be held on October 3rd at the Huntington Convention Center, and the topic is Northeast Ohio's maritime transportation. And then also our September 12 board meeting. It is a location offsite, so we're taking a field trip to Mentor School's Paradigm Building in Mentor, Ohio. So just reminding you that the next meeting of the board on September 12th will be offsite. And I believe we sent out invitations, calendar invitations yesterday to ensure that the correct address is on your calendar. That is it for me. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We will turn now to the action items. The first item 5A, is state fiscal year 2025 overall work program completion budget. Ms. Galucci.
Yeah, good morning again. The completion report is a requirement for us, although it's also a very good business practice to look at the plan for the year and determine what you were able to accomplish for the funds that were issued or approved. Staff has summarized all of the activities that were outlined in the 2025 OWP, and we will submit this to Federal Highway and to ODOT after it is approved by the board in September. I do like to use this time annually to recognize staff because we generally do a very good job of completing a high amount of the both projects and project tasks. And so I would like to commend staff and recognize them for the work that they do. I will turn it over to Ronnie Blackshear, who is our Deputy Director for Policy and Compliance, to take us through the presentation.
Thank you, Grace. The action requested is to recommend the state fiscal year 2025 overall work program completion report to the Executive Committee for placement on the September 2025 Board of Directors agenda. The previous action is the board approval of the fiscal year 2025 OWP in March of 2024 and September of 2024 when it was updated. The OWP represents the agency's work plan and budget. It guides staff work for implementation of the long-range plan. It measures the performance of the activities in our OWP. There's 29 total projects. We achieved a 90% task completion rate, and 81% of the funds were expended or encumbered. The 29 projects, of those 15 were 100% completed. 5 were 90 to 99% complete. 6 were 80 to 89% complete, and 3 were less than 80% complete. I would like to note that several of our projects are multi-year projects, so that certain activities may occur in multiple years, and those are actually tracked too by percentages. The actual projects that were 100% complete includes the 604B water quality planning, Ohio EPA biennial water quality program, Brownfields revolving loan fund program, enhanced mobility planning, transportation improvement and funds management, project planning review, intergovernmental review and consultation, freight planning, transportation modeling and data analysis, congestion management process, regional safety program, transportation asset management, climate action planning, public engagement, the SEDS, and the overall work program itself. Those that represent the 90 to 99% complete include local planning and collaboration efforts, air quality planning administration, local water quality planning, sub-area and corridor studies, and non-motorized transportation planning. In the category of 80 to 89% complete includes air quality, public education and outreach, transit network and community rail planning, transportation operations planning, long-range plan, rideshare planning, administration, and operations management. Those that were less than 80% complete include signal timing optimization program, or STOP, regional infrastructure accelerators demonstration project, and TLCI. Inside the OWP, there were 122 work products within those 29 projects. 98% of those were 100% complete. 2 were at 90 to 99% complete. 4 were at 80 to 89% complete, and 18 were less than 80%. The agency staff completion rate of 90%. And we are looking at that to review to make sure that this is a draft that we're presenting, and looking at that to make sure that those numbers are up to par. As we continue to still get certain funds in, we want to make sure that we record the correct number. Approximately 81% of the budget has been expended. Those unspent funds will be carried forward to the fiscal year 25. Well, actually fiscal year 26, I'm sorry, including encumbrances and contracts, and the inclusion of the $15 million CFI grant would amount to a 36% expended if it was included. Pending board approval, the fiscal year 2025 OWP completion report will be sent to ODOT and appropriate federal agencies for review. Again, this is to recommend this item, which is the state fiscal year 2025 overall work program completion report, to the executive committee for placement on the September 2025 board of directors agenda. I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blackshear. Are there any questions? Mr. Clay.
I have 2 questions, and thank you for the update. On this completed work plan, there's 2 items. One, the climate action plan, which is only 40% complete at this time. The question I have, and it would be for Grace, have we received any communications that appears the winds have shifted a bit with the EPA? Lee Zeldin recently put out a report on that says that CO2 is not an issue, and so I'm expecting that there'll be some administrative action on climate action. And so have you heard anything on that particular item? And I'll ask the next question, and then you can answer both questions. And then there's an item on her evolution of future infrastructure and technology. I have no idea what that is. Can you explain that?
Sure. So in answer to your first question, we have not received any communication from US EPA about our climate action planning project in terms of canceling it or reducing it or taking the funds back. At this point, they have given us the directive to complete the project. We have a signed agreement with EPA that says we have to complete that project by December 1st. So that is what we are working towards. Certainly, if we receive any communication from them that asks us to do something different, we will do what they ask us to do. And then your second?
Evolution of infrastructure technology. I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, so what that means is the utilization of technology in transportation and how it would impact the infrastructure. For example, driverless cars. We would have to upgrade infrastructure in order to ensure that driverless cars could operate on the streets. Or can't think of another, ramp metering, although that's not such a high tech anymore, but different technologies that can be integrated into the infrastructure in order for us to be able to adopt that technology into the system.
Have your staff seen anything relative to AI? That's going to be moving very rapidly, and I expect that will change our world considerably. Have you seen anything on that front?
That's a great question. I have not seen anything specific on AI in terms of how it will impact transportation operations or technology. I will ask staff if they have heard anything different to raise your hand and go to the podium and talk to us, but I don't think there's been anything. But I agree with you that AI certainly will bring significant changes to our industry as well as all industries.
I've reached out to Elon to buy the first robot driver, and so I'm in line for that. So. Thank you.
Ali has something to say.
Is the microphone on?
I said we are using the AI for the traffic counts right now. There's a system which identify the type of the truck, type of the cars by the using AI. And the company we have got last year, we had one tested. It was was very good. This year, we are doing the same with the counting and using AI to identify the size and type of the vehicle we are counting.
Thank you, Ali. Yes, that's a very good point. The board did approve last year for us to expand our program from just a manual traffic count to a traffic count that is done more with technology-driven devices.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Berry.
Yeah, sorry, I had coming into the meeting, I had a question about this chart. We identified 9 projects, I assume these are all projects, that were under 100% complete or under 50% complete, I'm sorry. And that just seems very different than what Ronnie presented. So I feel like the chart, I understand some projects are multi-year and maybe that ought to be noted on here, but it just seems a little bit confusing because I think that he noted that of the, I think I'm counting 21 projects, whereas this lists 29 projects, only 3 or 5, I'm sorry, no, 3 were less than 80%. But if you, again, you look at the percent expended, there's a number of them that are less than 50%. So again, the numbers are just a little bit confusing to me in what we're presenting and how we're ensuring that we're getting credit for what is really done.
So sometimes, as we've discussed in previous years, the amount expended is not the same as the amount of work completed.
Okay.
So if, for example, a position is vacant, but someone else does the work and does it within their own job, then it won't count as funds expended in addition to their own salary, but they would have credit for the project completed. So that's one way it's different. Another way is what you just suggested about the multi-year projects. So that plays into it. We have increased our amount expended to 81%, which is significantly higher than we have in the past couple of years because we have filled positions. And so this year, with the 90% completion and the 81% funds expended, it's as close as it has been in quite some time. So we think that we are on the right track to balance that issue.
So then these funds expended are person hours or are they money assigned to a project, like a budget to the project? And so I don't understand why if someone else does the work, the dollars still aren't expended because someone's doing the work.
Well, Deb has approached the podium. That's a great question. And I will turn it over to Deb to get into more, or Ronnie to get into more detail.
Just wanted to mention, Ms. Berry, that when you have a project that's actually within the 29 projects, we consider those, there's projects within those. So for instance, on the one that talks about subcurrent of starters, like Arizona. Arizona is a multi-year project, and if the division is looking at 30% of that project being done for, say, 25, and I'm just using this as an example, if 70% for the previous years, you still have to account for the 100% of that 30% within that. It doesn't mean that that project is fully complete, but that's how it's being tracked. So it's kind of, I could have gotten into a little bit more as far as the calculations goes,
Mhm.
but I think at some point I'll put that into the actual report so it'll make it a lot more clearer in the full report.
So just on that, again, this snapshot to me does not tell the whole story and doesn't tell as a positive a story as the numbers you shared, Ronnie. So when we report to the OWP, what goes in? Is it this? Is it that? Is it everything? And do they understand all those nuances? Because again, just a layperson looking at this, it doesn't seem to match up. That's what I'm just concerned
Yeah,
with.
if you look at the OWP, it's the full, it's basically the forest. This is just going down to the trees. This is a snapshot of what occurred in 2025 in the fiscal year 2025 OWP. You'll see that each quarter, there are certain things or activities that are done. So the products, these activities that are in the actual completion report, you'll see a breakdown of each of those projects.
Okay.
And it's a better picture of what's actually happening.
So the state is getting the full picture of
Yeah, this is,
Gotcha.
yeah, they're getting the full, they get our OWP, so they take that. And at the end of the year, they match what we say we're going to do to the final completion report. And so far, we've, been approved pretty much each year. We go back and forth on certain things, but we generally get approved.
Got it. Thank you. I'm still curious, yeah, about that staffing piece.
Yeah, and before Deb answers that question, just to add some information, it includes dollars, not hours, for staff salary, as you had, you asked that question. So it is dollars for consultants, dollars for staff time. So it is in dollars, not hours.
So again, this is essentially the budget for this particular project.
Correct.
And so again, I just don't understand then why if someone's staff time was used on it.
And when I said that, I'm speaking more of the bottom line as opposed to individual projects. Individual projects can be a little bit different. Certainly if somebody else is doing the work, they're going to mark their time to that project. But the other aspect we have is that if you work more than 40 hours a week or 80 hours every pay period, it does not count towards the project. So if somebody is spending time because there are vacancies to do work and they're doing it in addition to their own work, it does not show up on that report.
Okay.
Well, that's something that we
Like
can't,
awkward accounting.
very much so, yes.
All right, I do have one other, do you have anything, Deb, that you want to add or?
Well, I think that if you look at the funding tables that are a couple of the last pages of the full OWP, that breaks down the projects with staff time, other consultants for the original planned process for the projects. That changes throughout the year very often for various reasons. Sometimes
Sure.
we can't get consultants, and so we end up doing the work internally. And so that changes the cost. That's part of it. I think that it's been probably 2 or 3 years since the then comptroller sat down with finance and audit and went through more of a detailed process. And I'm happy to do that with finance and audit committee or the board or whoever's interested in trying to better understand these documents.
Okay, and again, I don't want to belabor this too long. Helpful
Yeah.
to understand the stuff behind it. One final question though. So I understand you took out the 15 million from the CFI grant, but where is that then in the 29 projects that it then was removed?
Sort of in the middle on that page. You
So
can
is
see it,
it the evolution of future infrastructure and technology? That's the only thing that is budgeted above 15 million?
605.5.
605.5.
Okay, got it.
605.
So that
Yep.
goes to your question, Skip. Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Tewan, yes.
Thank you. To expand on that, I guess I don't understand why we're subtracting out the grant. The 15 million, can you explain that to me, what that is?
Yeah, we're just showing it both ways. So clearly the grant is for a specific capital project, which is unusual in our OWP. And so without spending that $15 million that was budgeted in the 1 year, it doesn't give an accurate picture of the rest of the expenditure. So we're just trying to show both ways, with the 15 million and without the 15 million.
And did you, not account for the amount that was expended from that grant?
There has not been anything expended from that grant
The
this year.
106,000 was
So-
part of that.
Yeah, I just asked that question myself, of staff, and they had a really good answer, so I'm gonna let Deb give that same answer.
Yes, so actually in 6055, there should be another fund listed other than 10. So there's OCPG funding, and then we just created a new fund for the CFI grant because we did not expend any funds or receive any funds in fiscal year 25. So there should be another fund in that very first column added to this that may help you better understand. Originally, the CFI project had $300,000 set aside out of that 15 million to hire a consultant to get the project started. And I'm sure Dr. Makarachi could explain that better than I can. But that did not happen in fiscal year 25. But we started to expend some funds on staff time for CFI that was charged to OCPG. And so that 6055 project is actually OCPG funds, which is Fund 10. But it's also, and I don't want to give you the wrong number, but I'll make sure for the board meeting that it has the correct fund number. We just created a new one. I believe that it's Fund 13 that will show the expenditures for the actual CFI grant that we did start expending in July of, so this is a new fiscal year. So you'll start to see that in the reports.
And I'm sorry, will this be revised then?
So fiscal year 26, starting in July, will be on next year's report. So there was no expenditure on the $15 million grant in fiscal year 25 that ended June 30th. So it does not need revision.
Thank you.
Ms.
But-
Berry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Deb, didn't you just say you started to spend money on staff time from the?
In July,
Oh, in July.
in July. So that's fiscal year 26.
Okay, that still does go back to Bonnie's question of why the 106 then is
So,
not removed at the bottom.
I'm sorry, staff time was expended out of OCPG funds under 6055 because a consultant was not hired. And so we were able to use OCPG funding for that portion of the CFI project that was not in the original budget.
Okay,
It
That
it
makes-
goes to the multiple sources of funding. And so the $15 million is both a project and a fund. And so we subtracted that out again, just for illustrative purposes to show what the overall would look like without that particular project. In general, we're looking at trying to explain the expenditures of our operating budget, and the majority of that 15 million is actually capital. Again, that's why we're trying to show both ways.
Yes, Mayor Mara.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, while that slide is up, it says 122 work products tasks within the 29 projects. Is there a breakdown we can see what those 122 work tasks are? Is there anything where we can see it? Because again,
Yeah,
know,
it's in the OWP, so we have a document that we just prepared, which is the 26 OWP, and then we have the 25 OWP that this completion report is matched up with. So that explains it. Every project has detail on every task, including the timeline.
all right, question is, I mean, we're here to vote on something here, and the thing is, we're presented with a presentation here. We see it firsthand. We don't know. I got a lot of questions, but again, we don't have enough time here to analyze it. And then we're asked to vote on something. And again, there's so many questions and doubts. And biggest one I'm having here is this $15 million. Are those just set aside for certain tasks? And how does that overall, I mean, what is that for exactly? I guess I don't understand. What are we spending $15 million for?
Yeah, so the $15 million is for the EV charging stations as part of the CFI grant. So that is what that $15 million is for. We applied for and received a grant specifically for charging stations. That is the only thing that can be spent on,
All 15 million?
all 15 million.
So we're gonna build charging stations with a grid that we only have less than 15% reserve for. And again, now they raised our power rates. Why? Because they want us to use less electricity. So when they build those data centers that consume the electricity, that they can have electricity for their plants. And again, this is all, there's no transparency. And then why are we spending, what is, I guess, 15 million on, I guess, driverless cars? How's that benefit our roads and bridges, and what really the purpose of NOAC is? I mean, coming down here, the roads are terrible, bridges are terrible. Why are we doing driverless cars? I mean, that's ridiculous in downtown Cleveland. I mean, the logistics aren't here for it, I mean, and then to build an infrastructure around something in the future that honestly just, it's a waste of money. It doesn't make sense. I mean, we have other needs. And again, I think this organization is going down the wrong path. And I don't, honestly, coming to these meetings, I can't approve anything when I don't have all the documents in front. I mean, we don't know what's going on. There's so many questions. And again, why aren't those provided with it, all the details, so we can see all the breakdown? Again, where's the transparency? That's all.
Sure. I appreciate that, but I'll tell you that the transparency is there. The OWP was not only produced to the board, it was approved by the board. So that has been done a year, and it was March of 24 that the overall work program with all of the tasks and all the project was reviewed by the Finance Committee, reviewed by the board, and then approved by the board. So we work only with the board-approved OWP. And at this time, the ask is to approve the completion report to express or show or demonstrate, however you want to say it, the amount of work that was done against that work plan and the amount of dollars that were spent against that work plan. But all of that, NOACA staff does not work independently. All of that has been taken through the board and has board approval, including the $15 million that came to the board as a amendment when we received the grant. And so when we received the grant, we brought it to the Finance Committee, we brought it to the board to explain the purpose of the grant, and the grant was approved by the board. So staff did not just sort of kind of do that on their
I
own.
understand, but do we have a choice? I mean, we're given, parts and pieces of information, not the complete story. And again, we're saying, okay, we have to vote on it today. Okay, so, there's no research. I mean, I like to dig into a lot of these things and do my own research at home when I have some free time, not try to do it here within, the next vote. So again, I see the lack of transparency completely. And again, I understand those reports are all public, but why aren't they included in our packet? It takes nothing to just add it so we can go review these things. So that before we come here, a lot of these questions we can have and then we can hopefully get the right answers to the questions.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Again, because we had already provided it to the board, so we did provide the full OWP to the board and to the Finance Committee at previous times. So we did not think to include it again in the package, but we certainly in the future can include a link to the old documents so that way you have them.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Cleveland.
Procedural questions. So, two questions for you. First of all, to make clear, this report isn't to approve anything. It's simply a report. We're just acknowledging what's been accomplished. Is that true?
Right. We have to submit it into FHWA, and it needs to be submitted with the board's authorization.
So approval of all these projects has already been done.
It's been done.
And so it's just a matter of the staff is reporting on what has already been done.
Correct.
And what the percentages of completion are. So one other question is relative to this report, and I don't know if this would accomplish anything or not, but it's a curiosity of mine. Can we line item remove items off of this report and set them aside?
That's an interesting question. Remove them because you're not clear about the completion percentage or the dollars spent, or just because you object to the expenditure?
Well, the $15 million is an example. I mean, it's on there. It's 1% complete. It's not even started yet. So it may be an opportunity to set that aside for expanded conversation. And I don't know whether, like I said, I don't know if that even makes sense, but I thought I would bring it up just to assuage
Yeah.
some people who have concerns.
I don't
Well-
think we can I don't think you can remove that in terms of the completion report, but I think the point of discussing it is, separately is up to the finance committee and then the board. If the board would like to revisit accepting the $15 million grant, they certainly can do that.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, I don't think that taking the line out of the report changes the 15 million. It just changes that we're not reporting on it. So I don't think that actually eliminates the underlying $15 million line item. Yeah, yeah, thank you. And
Yes.
back to a point that Mayor Mara made, I feel like I want to say this for the record. In the United States of America, we have approximately 40,000 motor vehicle fatalities annually. And that's over 100 a day. So when it comes to driverless cars, the technology may seem remote at the moment, but I think there will be a time when we will look back on this time and wonder why we did not do more sooner to end over 40,000 fatalities a year, doing something that we all basically take for granted at this time. But those fatalities being primarily due to human error and other impairments that people may have when they drive vehicles.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Exley, excuse me.
Good morning, everyone. Two comments on that. To Mr. Mara's defense, even driverless cars can't travel across bridges that are not open.
Fair enough.
Number two, it's my understanding of the 15 million, that is for charging stations. It is a grant. And to my understanding to date, that's use it or lose it money. That's not something that we could take $15 million and redirect it to something else within the NOACA program. Is that correct?
That would be correct. If we chose not to move forward with the project, we would simply return the funds.
Thank you.
So that was allocated specifically for that?
Correct. The program was the CFI program, the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Program, and specifically for those EV charging stations. So if we choose not to move forward with it, we return the funds. And actually, I just had a note here from our legal counsel who says that the link to the OWP was in fact included in the package on the the OWP completion report memo. So all of it was in the packet. So they were ahead of, they were one head of step of me, staff was.
Thank you. Yeah, I see Mr. Blackshear, I think, has something. Why don't we?
Yeah, I would like to add, as far as, I know we're talking about that $15 million grant. You have to understand that, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, is that that's a multi-year project. So whatever was done for the period of fiscal year 2025 represents a percentage of that total. That still has to account for, we want to account for 100%, whether it's staff work, they've done it at 100%. The actual project is not completed because we haven't started that. So you have to take those things into account when there's multiple projects. Another thing too is that the OWP and also completion reports are actually located online. For fiscal year 25, we're still in the midst of drafting that to make that final. We present this as a snapshot to the Finance and Audit Committee, but if you want to see how the completion report works at the present time, you go to our website and you can see the fiscal year 2024 completion report. 2025 is in the midst of being drafted and will be presented for review. And it'll show you a more detailed explanation as to the completion report itself. But if you go back to our OWP, which is produced annually, that's approved by the board, that'll give you even more detail as to what we say we're going to do and what we say we're going to do, and what we get to the end of doing as far as the completion report is what ODOT and FHWA looks at.
Thank you. Mr. Patrick, do you have something?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a general curiosity, does not using and returning the $15 million put NOACA in jeopardy of not receiving future grant funding? Is there a strike against the MPO or anything like that?
It does not if we choose to do that. If we kept the grant document in place and then didn't complete it, that would certainly hurt us. But returning the funds, I don't think would have any impact on future opportunities.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve? Okay, Mr. Dever, second by Ms. Tewan. Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 5B, State Fiscal Year 2026 Overall Work Program Budget Amendment. We turn now to Deb Wordle and Lily Johns.
Okay, we are here to present to you the state fiscal year 2026 OWP budget amendment. I would like to turn the presentation over to Lily Johns, who is a recently hired finance staff member. She completed a year-long internship at NOACA and is now a full-time employee for us in finance. And she's going to present this to you, and I'll stand by for questions.
Good morning. The action being requested is that after the review of the information being presented, the Finance and Audit Committee would recommend to the Executive Committee that this amendment is placed on the Board of Directors' agenda at the September meeting. The previous action was that the NOACA Board approved the state fiscal year 2026 OWP and budget in March of 2025. With a total operating and capital budget of just over $33 million and a pass-through budget totaling $6.2 million. To provide some additional background information, it is standard practice that the Finance and Audit Committee approves periodic amendments to the OWP and budget for all new projects or change in scope or increase to the original budget that are more than 10% of the total agency budget. While this fiscal year 26 budget amendment is only 4% in total over the original budget authorized by the board in March, the Transportation for Safer Communities Initiative, TESI, that continues to be developed with the input and assistance of the Policy Committee may require a change in scope to Project 6057. The following 3 slides will depict the breakdown of the request for the budget increase. Beginning with the budgeted revenue. In the unbudgeted, unencumbered carry forward, the earlier projection fell short by just over $200,000. That amount includes OCPG funds totaling $113,000 made available by the true-up that occurs each fiscal year. Nearly $100,000 in CMAQ funding for the rideshare program, which is being added to keep up with the increasing demand of the service. In the new revenue category, we would like to budget for the work on the TESI program that would be partially funded by the STBG Supplemental Planning Grant. NOACA was recently awarded a supplemental brownfield grant in the amount of $750,000. $241,000 of that grant is being allocated to operating expenses for further administration of the revolving loan fund program. And finally, the projected revenue associated with the crowdfunding initiative for NOACA's commitment to the Irishtown Bend project. The total operating revenue is being increased by $1,281,253. The breakdown planned spending of the nearly $1.3 million includes $387,000 in personnel costs directly related to rideshare, brownfields, and the regional safety program. Just over $150,000 to secure consultants to work on the TESI and brownfield programs. $727,000 for the crowdfunding contribution to the Irishtown Bend projects, and $15,000 for supplies and travel allocated to the various projects listed. The total adjustment to NOACA's fiscal year 26 OWP operating and capital budget is $1,281,253, bringing the new total budgeted amount to $34,362,363. Finally, $508,525 of the $750,000 supplemental brownfield grant is being allocated to the federal pass-through budget for the purpose of providing loans and grants. Pending board approval, NOACA staff will forward the revised state fiscal year 2026 OWP and budget to ODOT and federal agencies for approval. And finally, we are requesting that this state fiscal year 2026 OWP and budget amendment is recommended to the Executive Committee for placement on the September 2025 Board of Directors agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mr. Dever. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Berry. Is there any discussion? Mr. Conrad?
The question, you said there is 15,000 in the budget for travel for the projects? Aren't they all pretty local? I'm just wondering what the travel expenses.
Travel and supplies. So again, going back to the funding, you'll see this in the funding tables in the amendment for the OWP that the board will receive. Other includes, could be travel, could be supplies. There are a couple other smaller categories. But when staff members travel for local projects, they are reimbursed for their travel because they're taking their personal vehicles.
Thank you. Mr. Cleopold?
Yeah, this is a bit confusing to me, so you can talk to me like a kindergartner. So if I'm looking at this and if I understand it correctly, we've got a revenue. We have projects that were under budgeted from a revenue perspective, that true up and ride share, is that correct? Or is that additional revenue?
Those are additional revenues. So the OCPG funding, ODOT provides us with a total amount in December. And that amount always changes between December and May. And I guess it has to do with their own budget.
Okay,
So they provided additional funding
making
to
up
us.
for a shortfall in that case. And we're taking public dollars, the crowdfunding, or is that something initiated by NOACA? Is that government money or is that private money?
It's private money, but the intent of that stems back to the project application for the infra grant for Irishtown Bend as part of that federal project application. There was a crowdsourcing component to it, which was actually very heavily weighed in the receipt of that grant, but it is expected to be private money.
So, and there's no legal issues with us handling public or private money to do public events?
So that would be for the expense of the Irishtown Bend. So it would be infrastructure related. And in terms of once the public money comes into NOACA, once the private money comes into NOACA, it does become public money.
Yeah, so it's in essence a donation.
Correct. Towards that project.
Interesting. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there
And-
any, oh, go ahead.
Just to elaborate on that, the 726 is what the gap is, and that's what we hope to raise. There's no guarantee, of course, that we will raise that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Thank you. We now move on to a presentation and discussion items. Item A, future action. There's no presentation on that today. Item B is information. Fourth quarter state fiscal year 2025 capital programs performance measures. Presenter Sarah White. Ms. White, you have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sarah White, and I'm a senior planner in our programming division here at NOACA. And today I will be presenting our end of the year state fiscal year 25 capital programs performance measures. No action is requested, and previously these performance measures were set and approved by the board through resolution 2016-029. So just quickly, for our previous fiscal year that just ended, these are the budgets that were available to our capital programs. So we have our STBG at 31 million, our transportation alternatives or TA at 3.5, CMAC at 17, and carbon reduction at 3.9, giving us a full fiscal year allocation of 55.6 million. These performance measures were set to help us make informed decisions and also work towards optimal expenditure of these funds so we can get projects through to implementation. And so we have two areas that are very critical to the work we do, and that includes program delivery and then utilizing the funds. So our first measure within program delivery is the percent of on-time project implementation. So our target is to have greater than or equal to 85% of projects awarded within 30 days of our annual priority date. So this quarter, the fourth quarter, projects were delivered on time, giving us, we were very close to the measure at 80%, but our year end is 68%. So we had 4 of 5 projects on time, and we did advance 1 project from state fiscal year 26 to 25. So we were happy to move that project towards implementation. The second measure evaluating program delivery is program balance. So we're looking to measure less than or equal to 20% of funds programmed in the last quarter. So essentially, we're trying to get those projects out earlier in the year, so we're not rushing with several projects at the very end, which can lead to unintended carryover. So at the end of the fiscal year, we did meet that target, and we had 8.4 million out of 84.6 programmed in the final fiscal quarter. So we're at 10.2%. And then the second area of measure is fund utilization. For this measure, we're looking at the variance between the number of funds we committed in the TIP versus the amount actually realized in the contract. So how close are we to what we expected for the contract amount in terms of budget? So for this quarter, we are actually just outside the target at negative 13.8%. But for the year, we were within the target. We met our goal at negative 9.6%. So projects are well within our expected budget and actually a little bit under what we expected. And then the final measure is percent of funds encumbered. And so for this measure, we're tracking the amount of funds encumbered within the current fiscal fiscal year. So our target for this measure is to have more than or equal to 95% of funds for those originally programmed projects. So we did end the year and the quarter at 46%. But this is a measure we've already started working on for state fiscal year 26. And we are using all the tools we have to encumber as many funds as we can. And we're trying to push projects forward and advance them into earlier implementation years so we can get the money out doing the work we expect. And also that would help improve this outcome. So for next steps, we've already started working on moving projects forward in the current fiscal year, which is state fiscal year 26. And we will continue to report out at the Finance Committee every quarter throughout this year. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Ms. Tewan?
Are the goals or targets consistent with ODOT's goals and targets? Or are they NOACA's goals?
So NOACA created these goals and targets about 10 years ago. They did not exist. ODOT did not have the level of detail that we had in ours, but it is our understanding they are currently developing a slate of measures that will mirror ours. So they're going to require everyone to do the ones that we are doing.
And are these goals consistent across the state with other MPOs?
Not yet, but ODOT does plan to make them consistent.
Thank you.
So we are, I guess to say, we are ahead of the rest of the MPOs in the state by doing, by measuring performance on our own, as opposed to waiting for ODOT to do so at the end of the year when things are not met.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Claypool?
could you go back to the slide that had the measurements? What our metrics were? There.
Is there a specific one you'd like to see? Or-
Yes, the one that shows the CO2 metric, the climate change metric. You had an initial slide. It was like second one in. Oh, back. There you go. That's it. Okay. So we're gonna, we have budget set aside for carbon reduction programs. So here's my question for the staff or the board. Does anybody happen to know what the metric is? What are we trying to get to with our climate action plan from a CO2 reduction? Do you know what it is today? Do you know what it's been historically? And do we know what we're trying to get it to? We're spending $4 million to get to some goal. Do we know what that goal is to see if it's even achievable? Are we wasting $4 million? So that's my question to somebody.
No, I can answer
Where
your
are-
question.
So,
So the carbon reduction program is not something NOACA developed. That is something that the federal government developed. That is the name of the program. They give us all of the criteria and the requirements for projects so they're able to meet those targets that you're speaking of. It's really federal government level policy. By the time it gets to us, it's simply administering a program, which is about the projects, not about the specific emissions that are eliminated.
so we're thinking people though. So
I'm sorry?
I said, we're thinking people. And so we know that the federal government does things politically and not necessarily based on real science. They just do things because of ideology oftentimes. If you look at the historic CO2 levels, it's been as high as 3,000 parts per million. It's 420 thereabouts today. What the achievable goal is, or what the climate change people tend to want to get to, is 300. The temperature is not changed between 3,000 parts per million and 420 parts per million. For us to be taking tax dollars and spending it on something that we probably is unachievable, I think this board needs to be more responsible than that. We need to go to the government and say, you know, thank you for setting this money aside, but we're not going to waste tax dollars on an initiative like that. And so maybe I'm the only guy at this table that thinks that way, but I look at this and I say, are we going to accomplish anything with the money we're spending? And I can't understand for the life of me how we will do that.
So, and just to be clear, the carbon reduction program funds transportation project infrastructure. So it is not a program where we are doing outreach or a program where we are developing plans. It is actually construction projects for the transportation network.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Mara.
Yeah, where's the money coming from? Where are the sources, the 17.1 million for the congestion, the CMAQ, and then also the 3.9 for the carbon reduction program? Where's those funds coming from?
Federal government, they have created those in legislation, and particularly the CMAQ program has been a longstanding program with all of the metrics identified, again, at the policy level in Washington. When we get it, it is a program that we administer.
The money's already there and appropriated, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. And then part of that air quality, we looked at tree canopy restoration. Is that also included in that? Or I saw that was taken out at one point. Is that?
Right, so
gonna be
the
incorporated
tree
back?
canopy concept that we had developed as part of a emissions reduction program was a special grant that we applied for, and we did not receive that grant. So those funds are not reflected here. The congestion mitigation air quality program, correct me if I'm wrong, but does not allow for the development of tree canopy. It must be a transportation project.
That's correct.
Yes, Ms. Berry.
Yeah, Sarah, could you advance to the last metric, the percent funds encumbered? Sorry, so this one appears to be trending downward significantly, and you mentioned, and it also says on the sheet that we got that you're using board-approved steps to try to improve that. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on specifically what we're doing? Because that seems like something, you know, we really do want to try to move up.
Yeah, I can address that from the bigger picture perspective and then have staff address it in more detail. But generally, yes, you are correct that it is trending in the wrong direction. We have been concerned about it. We have discussed it. Much of what is happening is the projects in the communities are not moving fast enough. And we have done our best to overcommit projects so that way projects that need to be moved up can be. At this point, the board allows us to take various actions, including paying down debt. So we currently have some state infrastructure bank loans, for example, that are out there unpaid when we have balances sitting in the bank. So we would like to pay down that debt, and that will help the ending balance. Now, that would simply mean that projects that are not performing on time will either need to get pushed back, or they themselves will have to take state infrastructure bank loans. So there are consequences, but we have a number of opportunities to improve this outcome. Again, most of them we don't really want to take unless we have to, because it does cause consequences, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that's helpful.
Mr. Conrad?
Do we have any policy in place for communities that are continually or repeatedly non-performing?
You know, that's a great question. NOACA does not have a policy in place that speaks to, say, canceling their grants if they are not moving forward on those projects. We have a number of projects that have been out there for years. We could discuss at the Finance Committee level a policy to say after X amount of years, if you do not have your project, if your project is not completed, then we can cancel the project. So that is something we can do, but we don't currently do. We usually work with the project sponsors and move their project back and move other projects forward so that we're utilizing the funds as best we can, but we rarely have taken a step to cancel projects, and we do not have a policy such.
Mr. Exley?
I was just gonna say, I think that with other funding sources that the county engineers get, there are penalties for not completing projects on time or without valid reasons. It just seems like that may be something that we want to at least inquire about, see if that's a process that may help with this issue.
I think it would, and I think that's a great suggestion. I would propose that staff start working on a policy or a policy proposal and bring it back to the Finance Committee for review, because I think that would go a long way in helping to improve these numbers.
Mr. Exley?
My question is, do we know why the projects are being delayed? Is it something that is not under the control of that particular agency, or is it something that internally they're creating a problem for? Quite often in our cases, it's environmental, it's things that we did not anticipate when we first got into a project. Does NOACA do anything to investigate those things or possibly assist if there's something that's unanticipated that does happen?
Yeah, we do investigate, and we do try to offer support or any kind of assistance that we can. Some of the reasons we find that the projects fall behind, design takes a longer time than anticipated. A change in administrations sometimes impacts it, where previous administration was really high on the project and it was a high priority. The current administration or the new administration isn't as excited about the project, and so sometimes that happens. Sometimes there's environmental, as you say. So and that's precisely why I think we haven't had a policy, because we kind of look at each project case by case. But yeah, we do try to move projects along. We can only get done what the communities get done, but we can work better on that as well.
Very good. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we will then turn to reports and updates. The financial report and the Brownfields Revolving Loan Fund quarterly report were included in the meeting packet. There's nothing further on that. I would ask then, is there any old business? Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
apologize.
Ms. Berry?
I do have one question
We'll go back.
on the financial report, and this actually goes back to the OWP that we approved. So again, sorry to get into the weeds here, but just trying to understand. On the financial report under the pass-throughs, the TLCI is listed. And this appears to be, right, the fiscal year, so the past fiscal year, which would be the same reporting as the OWP, but the numbers are completely different in terms of budget and expenses. And I'm just curious why that is. So if you look at the OWP numbers and then you compare it to this for just specifically that TLCI program, and they're different for what seems to be the same time period, and I'm not sure why that is. Does it make sense?
I need to look at the documents that you're referring to make it make sense to me, but Deb's run up to the microphone, so it must make sense to her already.
Yeah, so like page 12 that we had spent some time talking about, which was the OWP report that we approved, and then again, this report. Go ahead, Deb.
What is the page?
12 in our packet that we had
Right, I've
today.
got that one.
Okay, the financial report, I know what you're talking about, page 12, is that the
It's
same
the
report?
OWP that we approved the, amount, the percentage,
Okay,
which again
So-
appears to have a budget for the project and expended for the same time frame.
Mhm.
That's why I'm asking.
so the
question.
TLCI, there is a portion that is in the pass-through that was previously put in the pass-through, and then there is a portion that runs through the operating budget. And I think that's where the confusion might lie. I would have to look at the document that you're looking at. You're asking about the board budget report.
Yes,
At the very bottom, it has the pass-through amount.
correct.
So in fiscal year 25, that TLCI was still included in the pass-through. In 26, I actually removed it after talking with ODOT because it's funding that does not pass through our books. So there was a difference of opinion, but I did confirm with ODOT that because that money, it's actually would be similar to those capital programs that don't run through our books that Sarah just presented on. Whereas the other ones that are in pass-through currently, that funding does run through our books.
So I'm not sure that answers my question at
Okay.
all.
Debbie, are you looking at page 37?
No, I'm looking at page 12 and.
No, no, we've got
page 18.
page 12, but what are you comparing that to?
Page 18, which is
Oh,
the
page 18.
financial report that we just talked about. So again, if you look at, this is the board financial report for fiscal year 2025 ending June 30. And if you look down at the bottom, so forget about 26, TLCI funded 2 million in 958,000 expended. Shouldn't those numbers match what we are seeing in the OWP for the same time frame, fiscal year 2025?
That's correct. And I apologize. I didn't explain that to you all because I got off on another tangent.
Okay.
So what's in this board report on the bottom where it says pass-through expenses?
Yep.
That 958,575 is not included in the OWP expenditures.
Why
That
not?
is a separate TLCI. That's for staff time, consultants, because those are operating expenses, whereas the pass-through are not operating expenses.
Maybe to help it, we have two TLCI components to the TLCI budget. One is planning and one is implementation. The planning is funded through OCPG, which is, or it can be funded even through STBG, but it is in our operating budget. Whereas the capital or the implementation is a pass-through. We don't actually receive the money or authorize the expenditures. ODOT actually passes through the money from federal highway to the contractor.
Okay, so that's what we're seeing at the bottom of page 18. But then wouldn't that be in the OWP if it's money from ODOT as well?
It is considered a capital expense by ODOT.
Okay, so it's not part of that.
So it's not part of our operating budget that would be in our funding tables.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think. Okay.
And actually it's page 37 in the packet.
Oh, I don't even have 37 pages in my packet, so.
Oh, you have no page numbers. Okay, okay, yeah, I've got page 37 from the packet. I also note, and this may be convoluting it even more, it says April 30th on the top of the document. Is that really meant to be April 30th, which could explain the difference?
Which document?
Is this-
The board financial report?
Yeah,
There's not 37 pages.
there are not
Yeah, there are not
37
37
pages.
pages.
Okay, then I don't know what I'm
I don't know
looking at.
Mine
I'm
says
looking
June
at.
30th.
What am I looking at in my book?
All right, I think your TLCI explanation
Okay.
of the, which I know there was planning and implementation, I just didn't realize they were handled completely differently.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, I'm looking at the wrong page. It is page 18 in the current packet, and it does say June 30th. I was looking at the previous quarters.
Okay, again, I think I'm okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Clear.
are we in new business area?
No, we were still discussing, the reports and updates, and then we were going to move to old business. I was going to call for that again. Have we completed the, comments on reports and updates? All right, if there's nothing further, then, I'll ask if there's any old business. Seeing none, now I will ask if there's any new business. Mr. Claiborne.
So I have, it's a question that might lead to some future action, financial related action. So as a result of the policy committee meeting and so forth, I know we're going through this effort right now to come into compliance with an executive order on DEI. And so we've selected a new term, areas of persistent poverty and disadvantaged communities. And so if I look at, and I'm doing some homework on those, if I look at those programs, those are apart and separate from the program that we currently operate under. Environmental justice allowed us to reallocate dollars based on that criteria. These new programs, areas of persistent poverty, appear to be a different grant program. So that's both an opportunity and a risk for us, because we have to be careful. We're not changing names, we're changing policy. Changing names creates a legal issue for us. Changing policy does not. And those areas appear to me to be something that the Department of Transportation is just not caught up on yet. Those are still environmental justice programs. And under the current administrative order or executive order, my guess is those will probably go away. So we have to be careful we don't tie ourselves to something that may not exist in the future. And so, and from an opportunity perspective, if that's new money, now we can take existing dollars, reallocate those dollars, and then use the new money for that new program if in fact that is available and it doesn't go away. So I'm just bringing that up as a matter of note. I'm probably the weirdest guy at this table because I read federal law, I read Ohio law, I study this stuff. I don't, when I get a packet, I spend my night reading it rather than something fun.
That is fun.
Kind of weird that way. But anyway, so I just bring that up as a note because, we want to make sure we're doing things appropriately.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And to be assured, we are not simply substituting environmental justice with areas of persistent poverty. They are two different definitions. And obviously, environmental justice has been removed from the federal website. It is no longer an appropriate criteria to use in evaluating projects where areas of persistent poverty is. So where we can change the actual criteria from environmental justice to areas of persistent poverty, that's what we will use, as has been suggested by industry organizations and other folks who we are working with in trying to understand how to change our policies. But in terms of a funding program, there was no specific funding program for environmental justice, but it was included as criteria in many programs, particularly in the last administration with Justice 40.
The new program, areas of persistent poverty, there was a whole grant program for that.
There is.
So you can apply for new money now under that particular program. Now, again, that program might get scrubbed because they just are catching up with the new policies and so forth. So I'm bringing that up, maybe a new opportunity for us. And so it is new grant dollars. I had made a public information request. You just made the comment that reinforces for me that request about you're getting some input from various agencies. If you have any documentation on that input, I'd love to know what the industry is thinking on that regard. So if you've gotten something from the MPO National, whatever that organization is, then I'd like to get whatever that directive is.
Yeah, what we receive from them are usually newsletters that are available, and they send them out probably once a week, that speaks to different aspects of what's happening at the federal level. I did see one on the areas of persistent poverty, so I can get you that one.
Good, thank you. Is there any other new business? Seeing no further new business, can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Ms. Berry, second by Mr. Patrick. All those in favor say aye. Okay, before I adjourn the meeting, I will note that the next regular meeting of the Finance and Audit Committee is November 14th, 2025 at 8:30 a.m. Here at the NOAC offices, 1299 Superior Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you. We changed the title, City Hall, so I don't know if there's places where. Okay, great, thank you. Yes. Super, thanks. Saw you appeared on my calendar for the 21st.
Oh, good.
Yes, yes, and I wasn't even sure why, but you're there, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so whatever.
Just reaching out to board members.
Oh, okay.
Chit chat.
All right, oh, that's good. I'm always happy to talk. All right, looking forward. Wonderful. Okay,
See you then.
we'll see you then. I'll see you soon.
Thank you for chairing. Oh, great job.
Thank you, yeah. I like to say that, you know, my turn at chairing this committee formally was during the pandemic, so I didn't actually get to sit at the front of the room. Got to do it on Zoom, which was a much different experience.
I would imagine.
So, getting to do it here and, you know, Mayor Bradley and Commissioner Fletchnik, I'm sure. There's always things going on in the summertime. Sometimes you have conflicts, so happy to fill in.
We're in an official meeting. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. So we'll be on that way, Grace.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
I'm not believing that, but you will.